All right, we've got Neil Kramer here tonight. Super excited. We've been hoping to chat with him for a couple years now. I'm going to read some of this from his bio, actually, because it's really the best place. Like this first paragraph here just kind of describes exactly what he's talking about. So Neil teaches the supernal. No, see, I already got it. Now I can't. How do you pronounce that, Neil?
Supernal.
Right. Okay, I was right. Supernal method, the supernal path. He's a philosopher and esotericist. He focuses on spirituality, mysticism, and metaphysics. A lot of you guys have probably heard him before. He explores the relationship between our inner development and the social and cultural factors that influence our lives. Like, it's really good timing to have him on. And his attention is drawn to embracing truth, confronting challenges, and transforming self. And of course, he does this through his website, writings, audio. He's got the Romecast, and he's out there on the internet. Lots of great chat. So it's we're really happy to have you here, Neil. Thanks for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. It's great to be with you. It's my first time talking to you guys, so I'm excited to have a great conversation with you.
Yeah, sorry about that little flub up there. I was just looking at the wrong word.
That's all right.
Yeah, flub ups are just a thing around here.
Yeah, I get used to it. I can't take it personally.
That's life. It's full of them all over, so natural is good.
Yeah, but I mean, I just love your work. Like you articulate stuff that's going on in my head so well, right? Especially when it comes to this time. Like we were talking just a little bit before we started recording about what's happening in our culture and about spiritual growth and how that overlaps with that. And I think it's really important not to take things personally, but we have to be discerning as well. I mean, how do you like, where are you at right now with your work and having to wrap this polarization in our culture into that?
Well, it's been fascinating, first and foremost. I think if you can depersonalize everything in life just for a moment and rise above the map, it's just so fascinating to see people's insides revealed and to see this mainstream control system that I call empire, to see it kind of remove its mask and show itself. So it's unprecedented, a lot of things that are happening. And I think if we're always campaigning and always pinning our colors to a certain place, and you lose sight of it. So always to depolarize, depersonalize, to just, go and sit on the mountaintop and just contemplate it, then you start to realize that some very important things are happening. So, I mean, I work with people a lot. Probably 70-80% of my work is actually spent with individuals who engage me to offer guidance and a focus, essentially. And that's this thing that I call the supernal path. And, I've been working with people for about 15 years now. And what we do is we talk about life situations and metaphysical matters and deeper world affairs, the spiritual path and the connections between all those things. And if you just want the real essential core in plain English of what I do in myself and with others, it's very simple. We simply are aspiring to become better people. Stronger, wiser, truer, to have healthier alignment, more harmony, more contribution. So that is what spirituality is to me. It's very, as you might say, unadorned. It's very practical. It's very simple. It's not fancy. It's not complicated. It's very simple. And in this refining work that we do on ourselves, we come to more deeply experience the mystery of life in a deeper and more satisfying way. So, there's certainly a higher element to the work. But you could basically say that, what is that? Okay, it's self and soul, that these two elements of one's being that have a profound connection. And when those two elements are working together, life is good. And when they are not working together, life is very difficult. So when I use the word alignment, what we're talking about is sort of cultivating the proper relationship between self, being Neil Kramer, being Graham, being Darren, and the higher aspects of oneself, and having those two in proper relationship. And then when soul comes in, that opens this gateway to an even higher force, which we could simply call divinity, or the creational source, or God, or the original emanation. I call it the thought of supreme beauty. So the supernal path is just my word. Supernal just means from above, heavenly, something we look up to, something we aspire to. So just like anybody could aspire to be a great musician or poet or athlete or explorer or writer or whatever, to aspire to something is very, very healthy impulse. And as I say, that work is really just focused on the ongoing refinement of our foundations and our disciplines and our powers. So in my work, I often try and take very complex things and distill them into the simplest, most truthful, most elegant form that I can. So I would say that what we all have in common, us three and all the listeners and all the people who are going to encounter this conversation one way or another, what we all have in common are our foundations, which is our home, our work, and our relationships. We all have those three major factors that determine our happiness in life and our alignment. We all have those. And the question is, how aligned are they? Your home, your work, your relationships. How aligned are they with your truth, your own truth? And that's a very personal choice. So you can just ask yourself, on a week by week basis, do your home, work, and relationships reflect your inner state, your metaphysical aspirations, as we say, your vision of excellence?
Is this the gap you're talking about? The gap between the two is kind of like, and if you can get people to reduce that gap and find their solar path, then stuff is going to happen.
That's right. It's as simple as that. And what people do is they don't have a vision of good home, good work, good relationships, and just drift. They just drift from one kind of setup to another. And I've done it too. I know what that's like in both ends of the spectrum. But those foundations are a demonstration of our art of living. So there's no reason why anybody can't have a really excellent set of foundations, none at all. And those foundations are the building blocks of many things. So the foundations lead to disciplines of insight, growth, and empathy. And those disciplines lead to powers, magical powers of vision, translocation, and transmutation. So these three forces all connect to each other, but everything is built on those foundations. So when you're talking about those things, we talk about everything. We talk about politics, nutrition, music, home, mothers and fathers, kids, brothers and sisters, sex, emotions, artistry, everything. So the foundations we all share. So everyone has a way into that spiritual path. It doesn't begin with the fancy stuff. It begins with the very rudiments that everyone has. So as I say, I demand that practicality of my own spiritual life. And I, strongly recommend it to other people. So that is the basic work that I do, is the refinement of these three forces: our foundations, our disciplines, and our powers.
It's interesting that so if you work with people, then are you seeing them, like, as you reduce the gap, let's say, and you're seeing true transformations in these people, like people are finding, this improvements. I mean, I got to tell you, but hanging around people that are working on themselves is so refreshing compared to being in those environments where they're not. I mean, you can find those groups of people, and I've met some people that it's almost more of like a spiritual / new agey crowd, but in a way they're way more grounded than I would have expected.
Yeah. The test always with people who work on themselves is that it's not just endless theorizing and complex philosophy and psychology. It's very practical.
Right.
They're just strong, happy, true men and women. So, we use a word often in my work, remembrance. And I would say that the majority of the spiritual endeavor of a man, of a woman, is really about a sort of remembrance, remembering why we're here and what we're doing, basically. To know that, your life is not accidental. It's not just a happenstance of circumstances. It's however easy or challenging your life is, it's self-chosen. And, we are here in this vast, I would say, sort of spiritual college. Here we are all together in this, very, in a way, implausible and strange, but also wonderful learning environment. And, people sometimes say to me, what makes you think, Neil, that this is divine? What is special about it? Why is it magical? Does it have to be? What if it's not just some giant dead clockwork material accident, And I say it's a simple answer. The giveaway is learning. The constant and enduring invitation to learn and grow is built into every damn thing in life, ingeniously so. And it seems to me a very wise hand has very clearly wrought that into everything that happens in, as I say, in our foundations and in what we do in life and in our invisible grief or in our very, out external elation and humor, in the seasonal ritual cycles of life, in everything. And when we even entertain the idea that life is mysterious and magical and has a very important learning element, and it's intelligently created, then this spiritual adventure begins. And those people who know that will work on themselves. And the people who you're talking about who don't, if we choose not to engage, then a person is given to simply sort of finding better stuff and making themselves more comfortable. So to me, to disavow the gift of life, to decline the invitation to grow, leads to this amnesia, this concealment, a sort of, terrible withdrawal. And what I call empire, just, the system of control, loves those sort of robot people because they do exactly as they're told, and they'll believe any old rubbish that they fed, absolute dreadful stuff you see on the television now from people like Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow and Angela Merkel in Germany and Emmanuel Macron in France, or, celebrities like Alec Baldwin and Lena Dunham and people. Absolute garbage, absolute claptrap. People who are living in disavowal, it's champions of empire. So the polarization of the media really exposes people's ability to self-determine. And those who cannot just fall into lockstep, like soldiers with whatever campaign has got the loudest voice and the boldest colors. So to see people supporting Hillary Clinton, for me, was absolutely staggering, absolutely incredible that anybody in any way, shape or form can buy that for 1 second. Yeah. I'd have voted a tree stump as president rather than Hillary Clinton. So that to me really shows where someone's at. And if they're theorizing about spiritual life and philosophical life is just that, it's just theorizing. If it is, this time will reveal it. For me, it's not. It's experiential. And especially at this time of polarization, it absolutely exposes people's belief in themselves or disbelief. No one can hide anymore. They're showing you every day in the street and in the workplace and on the television, on the radio. Everybody is showing their true colors. And boy, oh boy, it's very surprising.
Yes, it's unbelievable how polarizing it gets and how really the veil is lifting. Like, it's so easy to see the lies now. It's like blatant lies. And yet, these people that I thought would have been, let's just say there might have been some Bernie supporters or people that might have been open to some of this sort of alternative, like everything, let's say non-system, non-empire, right?
Yeah.
Where are they? Like, they've become so polarized too, just because of, who won. Like, it's so if that would have changed, they would have been completely in a different space as far as, banking or environment or whatever. Like, it's so amazing to me that so many people a lot of people are waking up as well to the lies and seeing through the media and then leaving that paradigm behind. I mean, we do see the decrease in that for sure. But the amount of other people that are just stuck is just blows me away, that they can't see through it, or they don't want to. I think they don't want to see through it. I
think you've hit the nail on the head there. They don't want to. What people want is to vote for somebody, to follow somebody, but to follow a prescription, to go with the program, and they want viable leaders who can make that happen. What Donald Trump does is completely upset that, because he's spoiled the illusion.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't, if it was Mitt Romney, it would be okay. Right? Because he's just exactly what you'd expect from a conservative.
Yeah.
Go with the program, looks like everybody else, will say the right thing, he's a nice statesman, he's a decent family man, all that. Hillary Clinton, same thing, just continuation. So if it was somebody like Mitt Romney, if it was somebody like Hillary Clinton, it's an absolute guaranteed continuation of empire, absolutely guaranteed. What Trump does is upset the apple cart, because people have basically said, there's very few people who believe that Donald Trump is going to be a supreme statesman who voted for him. Very, very few. The reason many people who I've spoken to, especially face-to-face, not anecdotally, but me talking to them, first-person experience, first-hand historical experience, most people I've ever met walking across America since November voted for Donald Trump, most people, even in Portland and Seattle, right? And those people said to me, I voted him because this has to stop, this system. Yeah. It has to stop. And many of the people that I speak to realize that things we think we knew what they were, like affordable healthcare or the Environmental Protection Agency or the Federal Bureau of Investigation, are not those things at all.
Yeah.
And so when Trump comes in and messes them up, that's a good thing, because they're not what they purport to be. Exactly. Affordable healthcare is not about affordable healthcare. The FBI does not protect national security. And the Environmental Protection Agency, the last thing that does is protect the environment. That's the last thing it does.
It's not even about left or right. It's about those principles, right?
It's about the principles that the core establishment and the core process that has been in place since Egypt, right through to Rome, right through to, empires across Europe and Britain, right through to here, is unbroken. It's one system. And that system is fundamentally anti-human. It's a war system. And it has to have a story for the people who don't want to engage to follow. Otherwise, you just end up with people mad in the street. And the story is so richly ornamented and so articulate that even intellectual people choose to follow it who should know better. Yeah. And even brave-hearted people who should know better choose to follow it. So whether you've got like a Marxist intellectual, or you've got a patriotic, Iraq war veteran, they both should know better. But because they've not been schooled in self-determinism and in individual power, they have to follow something. And so then you end up with this constant dichotomy, a false dichotomy. So one of the things that I try and do in my work is immediately break down the reference points of conservative and liberal, of progressive and traditional. Just say, look, we're not even going to talk about any of that. That's all rubbish. All of it's garbage.
It's all surface, yeah.
It's just nonsense, So you have to check your reference points right from the beginning. Right from the start, you have to say, our basic assumptions about well-established, 200 and 300-year-old institutions in America and 500 and 600 and 700-year-old institutions in Europe are wrong. They are wrong from the ground up. When you can fathom that and deal with it, then you can have a dialogue. If somebody says, I can't accept that, what's the alternative? That's nonsense. I can't go there. The dialogue ends at that point for me. So I choose not to engage. I'm very polite. I'm very civil. I don't provoke. I'm not interested. I hate debating and arguing. I don't care to explain anything. I'm just not interested. I've got far better things to do, just creatively, in nature and with my friends and family. I'm not here to win an argument or persuade or wake people up. I'm not at all interested. But what this polarization does, as I say, is reveal those who don't want to know the truth, who choose not to engage with truthfulness. And the numbers are staggering. It's nearly everybody. Nearly everybody.
The numbers of celebrities and musicians is what blows me away. Like, this is when they're all coming out. Like, there was musicians that I used to love, like Pink Floyd or Madonna even, and all these. I mean, the list goes on. Bono, Madonna, Pink Floyd, these.
From somebody like Barbara Streisand or Meryl Streep, I wouldn't expect anything better, or Madonna for actual fact. But for somebody like Bruce Springsteen, I would expect him, if he has any sense of working class struggle and pride, you would expect him to do better than that. But it just shows you that even somebody with a big heart like him, I mean, he's not my cup of tea, but I believe he's a decent fella.
Yeah.
He's got it absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong on every level. Alec Baldwin, John Bon Jovi, George Clooney, Ellen DeGeneres, Julia Roberts, all these people who we've grown up with in film and television have just champions of empire. And all empire has to do is stand back and let them do it. Yeah, and most people will believe it.
Are they doing it? Why are they doing it? This is the thing. Are they doing it because they're told to do it, or is it that? Does it go that deep, or are they just they're so deep in that bubble
they're
that
just
winning.
The same as
they're winning the game.
They're just the same as anyone else. They have no idea what's going on. Those people who think there's this giant, ultra-sophisticated cabal of illuminist people, to me, that's nonsense. All empire has to do is allow the misinformed people to come to the front. And that's it. And they've got it. So, like I say, people, I just don't like picking names out, but hopefully if any of these people listen, they won't be upset. I don't usually do that. But if we're going to pick them out, we'll just pick people who, should be thick-skinned enough. So people like Anderson Cooper, as I say, and Rachel Maddow in particular, have no idea what is occurring in the world. None. They are firmly entrenched in a false paradigm. And that illusion is so vital to keep it going, to keep that engine turning around and around 24/7. That you have to have these powerful voices who seem very earnest, real sort of penetrating inquiry and stuff to the mainstream viewer, but not at all. It's absolute garbage. So although they're reading scripted material, I know that they have no idea what's going on. So you just allow the ignoramuses, through their own choice, ignorance is a choice, allow those people a big mouthpiece, and off you go, and you just stand back and let it happen.
Yeah, but isn't there some intentional, philosophy going on here where, when you hear, even like, let's just, if we're going to throw out names, like Hillary's doing a speech right now, she's on tour, she's talking about these 3 examples, let's say, and those are the exact things that they're doing. They're accusing the other side of the exact same thing they're doing, and it's like she's learned this from that the guy she's read or something, that basically it's this theory that, you accuse the other of, and I mean, in a spiritual way, Saul Alinsky, thanks. And in a spiritual way, we all do it to some level. Like I think I notice when it happens to me, like I get upset at somebody and I'm like, this is what I do all the time. It could be tiny, it could be bigger, but I can see it in myself and others, but I think this is more intentional. This is like the part of the game.
It is. And when the game gets very frenetic, people start to get serious, and sometimes it's a lot of fun, and sometimes it's dangerous, and people get hurt. So this is a prime example, before we go into any further detail on it, of this in the supernal path that I teach, this spiritual method. We just have a trinity, the spiritual trinity. So many spiritual thinkers have proposed this idea, and I'm just doing my version of it, just like everyone else. Mm-hmm. And the Trinity is self, to which the current state of the world is a very great concern to self, right? So if you watch the news and read the newspaper, it's of a great concern. And if you move around the cities, BC and Seattle and Portland are the places I go, it's a great concern. Huge problems. There's people blowing each other's brains out in Chicago every night. huge concern. To soul, it's very fascinating. It's very interesting, these movements. To the divinity aspect of us, the top layer, it's a game. It's a game of learning. So the Trinity is always present all the time. If you just have self doing everything, you go around in circles. So you get someone who's very clever like Noam Chomsky, but they miss that dimension. They just go round and round and round in circles. It doesn't go anywhere. The only understanding of it that makes sense to me is where there's this trinity of being, which I believe and feel is in every human, which is the self and the soul and the solar. So the solar in my cosmology is a pathway to divinity. So we often use this symbolism of the sun. So it's like imagine a circle with a dot in the middle. That's the sort of alchemical symbol for gold. So it's also a reference to the sun. So solar, soul, and self. That trinity is always at play. And at the moment, self is being put under tremendous pressure to polarize. And everybody who does loses. So as soon as you polarize, you lose. If you're a dyed-in-the-wool this or you lose. You can't see the truth at that point. So it's an exercise, this, in equilibrium, in deconstruction, in putting your money where your mouth is, basically. Because if you think about in the early 2000s, everyone was very happy to conspiracy theorize. But now it's become right on our front doorstep. People suddenly seem to have forgotten about all that and think that we have actual democratic processes and actual governments that care for our well-being. That's not true. That's never been true. And it's like suddenly, when it's on your own doorstep, people seem to forget all the principles that they've been pondering for decades, all get thrown out of the window. So it's a test of self, this. It's a test of self-determination to say, well, wait a minute, what is happening in Europe? Why are millions of people from the East moving westwards and destroying ancient cultures in Germany and France and Spain and Portugal and England and Ireland and Scotland? Why is that happening? Because that's suddenly just happened. And it's nothing to do with natural immigration or natural displacement through conflict. Nothing to do with that. It's clear that. Why is that happening? And that's, if you just follow that one thread of weaponized immigration, forget what color they are or where they're from, that's largely irrelevant. Just the numbers of people who totally do not integrate and who totally have no interest in doing that. You can see the hand of empire, and it's right there, crystal clear in front of you. And it leads to everything, and all the whole shooting match is revealed. And still, people don't want to look at it. They just think that if you even question immigration, you are somehow a terrible racist, naturalist, monoculture. And what absolute garbage. Racism is almost a meaningless word nowadays, almost totally irrelevant. So again, it's all in front of you, and it's a test to check your foundations, to check your reference points, to not theorize, but to establish truth for yourself in your own life. And when you do that, a lot of the pressure disappears about Hillary and Donald and, all these crazy right-wingers and all the crazy left-wingers who are even far worse to me at the moment. I've never seen anything like it. All of that problem starts to immediately depressurize. And all those people, you start to see that they've got lost, utterly lost in self. And soul plays no role in what they're doing. They've lost equilibrium. So it's like an exercise, this. It's like a test, like the special forces are being put under fire. And, you're going over the assault course and it's throwing down with rain and it's bitterly cold. And you're being stress tested to see if you can do it.
It's really hard, though. I feel like I had more equilibrium before. And now... Well,
it was easy before. That's on it. Now you're under stress. Of course, you're going to lose it.
Well, yeah, but now the more I see the lies in the media and that, it just pushes me the other way. Like, I'm not even trying to go against that whole mainstream narrative. But, I mean, that's inevitably like... So I feel like, how do I not get polarized when I feel like following the truth leads you to, one side or the other?
Well, it doesn't. The truth is always at the point of equilibrium. The truth requires no explanation, no persuasion. It doesn't need anything like that whatsoever. It stands totally on its own legs. It doesn't need defending. I've never felt that. The truth needs it doesn't. It will always win. It will always find its footing. It will always radiate what is real. Always. It cannot not do. As I say, the funny thing that I've remarked upon to friends and family is the huge discrepancy between what it looks like people are saying and thinking on this television and internet and what they actually say when I travel around in the car or at the airport or on a train or sit in cafes or go to people's houses or everywhere I go, people saying the media's gone crazy. We really can't trust them anymore. Like BBC and the CNN and Fox and MSNBC and all of that. It's gone. It's gone now, hasn't it? The New York Times, they were lying. The Washington Post, they're liars. How strange. We're going to have to do something else now. Well, I suppose this has to happen because you can't reverse engineer something that's so rotten to the core that it just falls to pieces. What you have to do is start something new, something different, something else. So you have to really see that this deconstructive process is utterly essential. And there's no backwards engineering to this of, let's get Ron Paul in, as a decent human being, as a senator, or Rand Paul is. Forget that. That's not going to happen in a million years. The only way it's going to happen is to completely supplant it with something else. You don't destroy it and go to anarchy. You already start to do the next thing. And that begins with education and food and power and the very, very simple physiological rudiments of life. So I have visited in the last year places where they're taking the power from the sun and the water, and they live in normal homes that look normal from the outside, but they're getting off the grid. The children do not go to school. What a disaster that would be. They don't go to school. They have homeschool networks. They have independent charter school networks, which are really good. They may have quality Waldorf schools, which are the worst Waldorf school in the world is 1,000 times better than the best mainstream school in the world. So they're thinking about that and they're saying, okay, next thing, we can't get food at the supermarket that's any good. It's hard to do that. We need to do it from something else. We need to have a cooperative market to do that. So they realize that the beginning of the new thing is a complete movement away from it, just like a free constitutional state slowly moves away from federal law, like Arizona or Texas, for example, slowly inches away from the ridiculousness of Washington, D.C., disconnected federal law. Communities are starting to do that in small ways here on the West Coast, not in California so much because it's so rampantly crazy, even though some of my best friends and wonderful people are there. The government, is so potty that it's hard to establish stuff. But where there's a little bit more freedom of movement in Washington, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Arizona, places like that, communities, middle-class communities, not just crazy hippie people, working class, middle class communities are starting to inch away to think that's all rubbish, the whole thing. So rather than moan about it or campaign against it, go in the streets with signs, we're just going to start immediately building the alternative. And that's starting to happen on a mass scale. And people, it's not being reported because it's a disaster for empire. But I feel implacably optimistic because I've seen the tendrils and the roots of this delicate seed since I was 25 years old, and now 20 years later it's getting traction. So you don't wait to see what's going to happen, you create the alternative.
Yeah, that's a good point. It reminded me of what you're talking about education, right? No, learning, how that's a core, a core part of the divine, right? The giveaway is learning. So now
that's it.
You talked about the last 20 years. Well, now we can learn whatever we want at our fingertips. That's like right. Whatever I want. Like I'm addicted to podcasts and and doing these and learning about them. But I mean, it's a constant, like, I don't have that same desire for just like whatever sports or music. Like, I still like music, but I've got the addiction to just learning stuff right now. So how has that affected this whole spiritual growth and the movement? I mean, now everything, you know, I'm hoping that that's kind of giving us an advantage and a shift where people can actually, you know, get to that truth, their truth.
It totally is, because learning's become an independent force now. We realize now for the first time on a massive scale that having to be degreed in something, to be a professor in something, is unnecessary now. And in fact, it may even be an impediment to actual learning.
Yeah.
So because the information is at our fingertips, that's the first part. So the data is there. That's good. But the crucial element is to have the wise elders who can tutor us in knowledge and wisdom, two different things, in discernment and discrimination and refinement, and have that excellent tutelage in our lives, physically in our lives. That's never happened. I've not seen that before until, as I say, the last 20 years or whatever. When I was a kid, there was zero of that. And I went to quite a nice school in England, one of the better ones in the area, and it was fucking shit. It was rubbish. And so God knows what the inner city schools were like in like Birmingham and Manchester and London. God knows what drivel happened there.
So do you mean rubbish as far as education goes, or as far as the culture and the environment there? Like,
well, all of it, but I'm talking about the education.
Right,
the education was absolute garbage. What a waste of everybody's time. What a disgrace it was. And I remembered that. So when I walked out of those school gates at 16 for the last time, I thought, don't forget this. Don't just move on and start partying immediately. Just remember this moment. Just remember this feeling of what a lie all that crap was. And now I know, do not go to university. Do not degree yourself by imperial qualification. Instead, actually learn. Actually learn the crafts of philosophy and psychology and the crafts and art of spiritual, mystical, metaphysical practice. Learn that. And you're going to have to try twice as hard. I'm saying this to myself because you have to discipline yourself. You can't just, dip in and out and know lots of things in a small way. You must become a scholar. You must learn the art of the scholar. And what's with the introduction of the internet in the late 90s, so we've got the data, we've had that now for a while, but what we're starting to have now is some of the people who are 10, 20, 30 years older than us, we have the wise elders now, independent for the first time.
Yeah.
So they're starting to get into the education.
Multidisciplinary guys.
Right. They're starting to get into the education system and teach young men and women the beauty and power of the Renaissance human, the human being who is gifted in art and science and martial arts and music and history, and is cultivating themselves. They know about food and they know about drink and they know about biology and plants and gardening. That's a complete human education. And that does not happen at all anywhere in the mainstream, nowhere. People think they may do it, but it's not the quality I would demand. I have seen it, though, in independent quarters. And the only way we can change anything is working with children. That's the only way anything ever changes. So for Donald Trump to dismantle the education system and defund it is absolutely brilliant. I could think of nothing better. And he's slowly but surely going about that. So he's not doing it in the way that I know about. He's doing it in a totally different way, and goodness knows what's going through his mind. But every step of the way, when you see the bigger picture and you remember the illusion that most people are under, it couldn't be better. It could not be better. And even to see some of the strange things that are happening, like the lady said to me the other day, but how can you say that this is good with Trump, where he's, rolling back privacy laws, so now the government can spy on us more again? I said, well, imagine this. Imagine that what's going to happen is there will be no CIA, there'll be no FBI, no NS. They're all going to go away, and something new is going to happen. So you have to make friends with the thing. Don't combat it. Make friends with it as you bring it down. Keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. So he's not a brilliant tactician. He's not a illuminated strategist. He has 2 or 3 people around him who are, though. But for me, still, I wouldn't be putting, Make America Great sign in my front yard. That's not going to happen. I've not got a Donald Trump sticker on my car. That's a dreadful and appalling waste of my gift of life. That what I'm going to do is concentrate on education, because I know that's the big weapon. That's the big super nuclear weapon, is education. And every single step of the way, wherever I come across somebody, I make that pathway available to the best of my abilities. And that's permanent, lasting change. That's the only one that matters, really. Wow. You have to embody it, though. You can't just talk about it. You have to lead by example, teach by example, which is an old walk. You've got to walk the walk. You've got to embody it. And if you can, that's fine. You're just not ready yet. Keep studying. And then when you start to feel you are ready for certain things in certain disciplines, then you put yourself forward for that. And you join with others who can do so, and you begin to form and create the alternative, already up and running, already happening. Not a dream, it's already happening today.
A good example of that is Jordan Peterson, right? He used to be a professor, and he's seriously contemplating not going back to that because he gets like 50 times more views from his lectures on YouTube, right?
That's right.
He's getting way more interest there. He can make way more of a difference in the world by doing that than going back to university.
And you're not restricted in subject matter and delivery either. I can say whatever I want. This is your show. You can do exactly what you want, which is unheard of. Prior to 1995, that was impossible.
I ate mushrooms once.
But now that power at your fingertips to whether you want to eat mushrooms or whether you want to, illuminate your audience, that free will is yours. And prior to that, what could you do? A pirate radio station, maybe, get a boat out.
CDs, yeah. I remember people having like bootleg cassettes way back in the day.
Cassettes, handing cassettes out on a street corner.
99 was like cassettes. It was all bootleg cassettes, and it made it all the way across Canada.
Right, which is great, but it's tiny. It's tiny. Remember you used to get little fanzines and stuff? I used to get little pamphlets about Hermetic wisdom, and it was like a little pink piece of paper, that someone had photocopied and stapled together. And, you'd go to this particular shop and they had them in a little wooden cupboard, and you'd get the pamphlet off a shelf and they go, this is radical knowledge and this is bringing the system down. And it was probably like 200 people had ever seen that piece of paper ever. Whereas now, that's totally changed. So it is education. It's not just the theory, though. You have to experientially do it. So you have to actually bring people together and physically spend time together. Skype's cool. It enables us to do this marvelous thing and everything. And I can keep in touch with friends all around the world. But you have to physically be with the people that you teach. There's no substitute for that. Just like a piano teacher would sit on the stool next to the student and say, no, not like this. Like this, and there's no substitute for that. You can't do it on a YouTube video or an animation or a VR headset. You have to physically be with the person, because when you're in the room, and they know this in places like Waldorf schools, there's an inductive process happening, which is that the teacher's embodiment of their wisdom physically, energetically, is affecting the other children in the room. So the quality of the man, the teacher, the quality of the woman, the teacher, is essential. And if you think back to your high school, I bet you can't think there's more than 2 or 3 teachers that were any good.
Two or three. Two or three, yep.
Yeah.
And most of them were fucking awful, weren't they?
Most of them were my gym. Yeah, most of them were my gym teachers. They were good. They were good. There's a couple guys that were really, really good.
I had a good history teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good English teacher, and that memorable fact should be the norm. That should be most people in the school, and it would be unusual to have someone who wasn't any good. Imagine if you ran a school, that would be the number one thing, is the quality of those people coming in, and the curriculum is absolutely crucial.
I let my wife run the school.
And you take a look at the level of curriculum out there today. If you actually sit back, I looked at a curriculum from a West Seattle high school. What a disgrace it was. What a disgrace. What an abomination. And it bears no resemblance to human life whatsoever. So that's the problem that leads to Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow and Lena Dunham. That's the problem that leads to those people. The way to fix it is to get people totally depolarized and say, look, if you vote in Democrat or Republican, that's your personal business. But here, that's not relevant. That's just not relevant. So the truthers and the ordinary people, forget everything. Let's just start fresh here. No reference points for those illusions. And when you do that, you start to break down those boundaries and realize that a lot of people actually have an awful lot of excellent stuff in common. So one of my great friends, a real lefty, progressive, woman, who on paper, I wouldn't even talk to her because it was so off the map. And yet when we converse and have discourse in a metaphysical way, 90% of everything is the same, and we get on absolutely brilliantly. And we've both transcended now all our old liberal and conservative ways and just said, what a load of rubbish all that is. Let's not even go there. That's just garbage. We'd been hoodwinked and we hadn't realized it. And we're good, we're conscious, and we'd still been trapped by that false thinking. So you have to start with this like Phoenix operation where you reduce all those old things to ashes and you start with something fresh. And once you've got to a certain threshold of that, then you may be, if you work really hard, and I'm in that process, fit to teach others. You may be, if you work really hard. And everyone has particular skills as well. So for some it's math, some it's music, some it's agriculture, some it's engineering. All those things are as valid and important as each other. And it's incredible when you start to focus on it, how those natural skills just come to the fore. And with, a very sort of intuitive and synchronistic process, this new way of educating ourselves and parenting ourselves starts to just organically arise. But do not look ever to the government for it, because they will lead you astray. And as soon as you think like this, a lot of those pressures start to dissolve. That you were talking about before, that how do you depolarize? You have to just take the bull by the horns in your own way and take your God-given skills, your great illumination, pick out the 3 or 4 things that are your specialisms and start to craft them, start to refine them so they become excellent. And then your vision of excellence will affect the young men and women in your life, and the old ones and the mature ones, but especially the young ones that think, boy, when we're near Darren, this thing, he just totally inspires me to do this. And when we're with Graham, it's a different set of things, and it totally inspires me to go about and doing this. I feel much more confident when I'm with him. And that's the inductive process that absolutely is the most dangerous weapon we have against empire.
Comes back to being the change yourself, right? Doing that yourself and
all the time.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. So what kind of things would you teach, in school that we wouldn't teach now spiritually? Like I got
to start next year.
There was two schools I think in the States that were teaching mindfulness when I watched this.
Waldorf this year, but it's mega expensive.
Is it really expensive?
It's like 10 grand.
So what are your would you teach? What kind of spiritual principles would you teach kids? Like I feel like we're missing that whole part of our life in school.
Yeah, we are. There's no wise elders. There's no one teaching. But I had no wise elders for 20 years, none, not one. So, and again, I lived in a nice place. My parents were good people. It's not a problem that it's an institutional, endemic, cultural thing. There are no wise elders. If you have some, you're extremely lucky. So we have to switch that around to bring in those men and women who are going to be in the earliest in the 40s, but more likely in the 50s and 60s. That's where wisdom starts to actually shine. So on this path, the maturation process, getting old, is a great reward, a great spiritual gift. It ceases to be a problem and it becomes the opposite. It becomes the best thing ever. I would say, in answer to your question, you know, I use axioms, AXIOM. You know, I use all kinds of methods and wisdom, old and new, in formulating my work with people. And I use the axiom just to remember something. Say, like in law, you have a legal maxim to represent an important or complex idea in a very straightforward manner. For example, you might say in law, there is a legal maxim, as a thing is bound, so it is unbound. In other words, you got yourself into this mess, you can get yourself out of it. So that's a legal maxim. Another one, ignorantia juris non excusat, Latin, which means ignorance of the law excuses no one. So in law, they use the maxim as a teaching mechanism. So that last one, you know, it means just because you didn't know you were driving on the wrong side of the road in Italy doesn't mean you didn't break the law, you know. And that statement encapsulates a piece of wisdom. And so I have always found the principle of the legal maxim very useful. And so in my work, I've developed my own axioms, you know, a maxim, an adage, a saying, but they're just more, of course, philosophically or spiritually focused. And so I create my own. So one of the ones that I use with people is your personal fulfillment is your sacred work. So a very common question you'll come across when everyone's thinking deeply in the evening and looking at the stars, taking a breath, thinking about new horizons, say, well, what am I here to do? What is my purpose? What is my sacred gift? Sometimes feels that other people know what theirs is, but I don't know what mine is. I've got news for you. Nobody does. Nobody knows what their big, massive, sacred gift is. Your gift, your job, is to fulfill yourself personally. Now, I don't mean to sit there with hot dogs and, you know, reruns of the Rockford Files. I don't mean comfort, indulgence like that. I mean to fulfill yourself intellectually, emotionally, sexually, psychologically, nutritionally, artistically. When you fulfill yourself on all levels of being, that is your sacred work, because the path to that fulfillment will require a deep spiritual journey. Mm-hmm. So now we've unfolded that statement, then we can go back to it again. Your personal fulfillment is your sacred work at the highest level. That's your path. So you can teach with the axiom like that, or another one. How truthful can you afford to be? Is a question I often pose. You, Darren and Graham, you guys can afford to be pretty damn truthful. You really can. And I imagine you set up your lives so you're free to think how you want, free to say what you want, free to provoke and antagonize or agree, free to have conflict or harmony, whatever you want. You can afford to be very truthful. Pretty much. There's a lot of other people, though, who you'll know in your friends and family who cannot afford to be very truthful because of the job, because of the husband, because of the wife, because of the church, because of politics, because of the military, because of something. That's actually, they've created an environment where they're restricting how truthful they can even afford to be. And so you sort of Rand Paul, who's a senator, who's a jolly decent man, it seems to me, a libertarian, he's actually made himself into a difficult position because he can't do certain things in that role. His father, Ron Paul, who is also a decent fellow, can just go anywhere and say anything now. And he's coming out with these incredible things. He was always quite interesting, but now he's out of it. He can go anywhere. So how truthful can you afford to be? Question mark. That's another axiom. So now we've explained it. You can see that contained in the seed, the wisdom seed, when you unfold it, is a whole lecture. You know, so we can take one axiom and go at it like as a group, not just me orating and as a seminar, but, you know, in discussion, where students and individuals can tell, you know, what they think, what does it mean to them. I'll give you one more as an example. Identity emerges in a clean space, right? Identity emerges in a clean space. What that means is this, that identity is something that gradually arises over 100 years of life. And then right at the end, just as you go, you finally know who you are, right? So you never know quite who you are at all, because it's always emerging all the time. And the only way you can change that is by creating a very clear and clean and harmonious environment, so the true pristine self can come forward, which is as pristine and as pure as it was when we were 5 years old. That's still intact inside. But then allied with, coupled with the great wisdom and all the battle scars that we've since, accrued since then, and you put those two things together, and it creates this incredible identity that is constantly emerging. Think of like a giant block of granite, and a great sculptor comes along, Michelangelo type, and starts sculpting at this thing, and over the weeks, over the months, the form, the beautiful form emerges, the statue emerges from the solid block, and that thing, there's no rush for it, and sometimes it's very smooth, sometimes it's very angular, sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small. It emerges over time. When somebody doesn't know that, they rush to find out who they are. And they rush to think, oh, I'm a black transsexual Democrat. That's who I am. That's what I'm all about. Oh, I'm a white, homosexual Republican. That's who I am. That's what I'm about. An empire plays this trick of giving you a menu of identities to choose from, to make all your spiritual progress end at that point. So as soon as you select off the identity menu, this is what I am, this is who I am, this is what I believe, you're out of the game. An empire knows that. Ingenious, you're out of the game. So our identity is this glorious, emerging sort of art project that slowly emerges over a long time in clear, clean, excellent spaces. If we're in a bad space, energetically, physically, emotionally, it hides. And then we don't know who we are. So having an identity crisis is kind of normal in spiritual work, because it just means you've had a quick evolution. And the guy you were a few years ago has gone. He's not here anymore. You're totally different. Everything's different. The way you feel about your family, the way you feel about work, the way you move in the world, it's all different now. So some of our principles, of course, are there. Some of our thoughts and feelings there. Our chronicle of life is there. But who we are is constantly changing. And the only people who are ever in any space to guide that are those who have this very beautiful, well-formed identity. And those people will be in their 60s and 70s and 80s and not before. Again, the critical presence of the wise elder in a young person's life, absolutely crucial. Wow. Totally ignored in modern society.
So how are some ways that you can keep a clean space? Like what are some major things you do to build that?
So it's back to the word alignment. Alignment. You ask yourself, you can do a sort of test. You can say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you at home? It's a very private remark. You might have one that you say out loud and one that you say quietly to yourself at night, You do the same with your work, with the main work that you do. I do lots of different work. I'm sure many people do these days. But if you work at the office or the factory or driving a truck or go into the city or, crafting in a workshop somewhere, whatever you do, whether it's one thing or a series of things, how happy are you doing that? How good is it? How aligned is it with who you are on a scale of 1 to 10? And then your relationships, how fulfilled are you by the men and women in your life? Do they celebrate you? Do they know you deeply inside or not? Are they just people? How are the people in your life able to commune with you on the most profound level? Can they know and recognize your inner self, or do they have no idea who really you are? Scale of 1 to 10, 1 awful, 10 fantastic. And most of the time, those scores are quite low, because it hasn't occurred to people that those foundations are 100% within their control. 100%. a representation of who you are. And they can be very modest. I'm not talking about opulence and riches and numbers of people. I don't mean that. It can be very modest. And it's the same for everyone. We just want a simple, nice, beautiful home with good environment inside and happiness and joy and music and poetry and souls that open to each other. Very simple. Nice garden maybe, whatever. It's very simple. It doesn't have to be great magnificence. It can be very, very modest. In your work, it must be something that fulfills you, that pleases you as you go about it, where you take pride in the quality of what you've done. And there's some level of contribution in it as well. So it pleases you, but it also is bloody useful to other people. They think, this is good. This chair is phenomenal. This math class was phenomenal. This man who picked me up off the side of the road and put me in the ambulance is amazing. Absolutely phenomenal. If that process is good, and it's aligned with you, then it's good work. If it isn't good work, as the Buddhists call it, right livelihood or not, right? And then your relationships, they are a reflection of your capacity for communion. So we use a special word in the supernal path, fellowship. Frankly, anyone can have a relationship. Human beings do that quite well. They could be bad, they could be wonderful, but to relate to each other is something we do, and we're in relationship all the time. Fellowship, in the way that I use that word, is just to indicate a more profound level of contact, a more truthful encounter with another man, another woman, whether it's in friendship or alliance or romantically, sensually, whatever, the different choices we each make in our lives. But that level of fellowship, there must be some sort of contact with who you are with that person. They must be, let us say, a sort of another pilgrim like you, another person with freedom in the heart like you, another person who is open and willing to transform like you. And those people, when they come into our lives, represent the tremendous satisfaction, tremendous comfort, and tremendous inspiration to challenge us and see us and celebrate us. And most of the people I work with, that's the number one problem, not enough fellowship. There's lots of people in the internet, there's lots of people in books and YouTube. They listen to stuff, but they don't physically actually have it right in the life. Most people's number one problem is not the proper fellowship. So in my work, we try and do something about that. We try and connect people together. We try and bring people together. But more importantly, just to point them to be aware of it, to say, you choose what that is. You choose that. It's your privilege that to be acquainted with the most excellent men and women of wonderful character and warmth and humor and aliveness and richness of expression. And whatever that is for you, that's your choice. That's your prerogative, your privilege. Wonderful privilege it is. Natural, everyone has it. But people don't think of it. They just sort of bump into people. And there's this guy you've known for 25 years and he's kind of, he doesn't really get it, but you've known him for a long time. And there's this person you're sort of with and, you love and care about each other. That's not it. So fellowship is in addition to that. It can be instead of if you want. But I have both sides of it. I have normal relationship. I have deep fellowship. I have people who get me and know me and understand me, and people who have no idea who I am but love me anyway. Yeah. And I can do all of those things, but fellowship, my life without fellowship would be a rather thin and anemic affair indeed. And with fellowship, when I am weak and lonely and sad and uncertain, then it's the greatest thing ever. And when I'm strong and powerful and creative and full of life, it's the greatest, alliance and celebration. And it's me helping someone else maybe on that day. But you're there, you are there, you're on the journey together. Pilgrims on the journey. Pilgrim just being someone who goes about a journey for a spiritual purpose. That's why we're here. That's what we're doing here.
You've been on the journey for quite a while now. So now it seems like we're getting some breakthrough. Like, do you think it's something we're going to see happen, in our lifetime or our kids' lifetime, or is it going to start to happen I mean, it seems like everything is ramping up on some sort of a bell curve right now.
Yeah, no kidding. It does seem like some things are accelerating for sure. Some things are going really wrong and some things are going really right.
Yeah, exactly.
The shadow gets very, very dark as you approach equilibrium, because it has to. Well, it's faint. You're not reached the zenith of that moment yet. For me, I can sit back and say I've never seen the media and the political landscape so corrupted and distorted ever. That's shocking. It's quite shocking to me, that. But I can also sit with equal amazement and equal awe and say I've never personally encountered so many amazing people with total compassion and total integrity and total love and artistry and, as I say, humor. It doesn't have to be a solemn affair, this, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very playful and vigorous people, and mischievous even. A wonderful, natural, playful human always has that element within them. The very wisest men often have a playful and surreal side to them, in my experience. Those people, I've never seen them in such great numbers, and I would hazard to say no one has. No one has. That's my guess. Nobody has. So the number of people here now who can hold a much better signal, shall we say, is unprecedented to me. I've never seen it, and no one I've ever met has either. Even the old guys who are twice, they've never seen it either. So something special is happening, and it definitely correlates to how awful things are. So to me, that's the moment of maximum polarization where you get a change, you get an earth change, which is completely natural, totally natural, all the time. Complete elemental reset. Good, bring it on.
So you think that's going to happen fairly soon?
I hope so.
I mean, yeah.
I pray for it every night. Bring it on.
Yeah.
Well,
bring it on.
There definitely seems to be, like, I know the homeschooling's on the rise, not vaccinating's on the rise, cable seems to be on the decline.
The off-the-grid communities, the organic farming, all the local farming, all that stuff, yeah.
Even 5 years ago, it'd be crazy to... homeschooling, not so much. Vaccination seems to have come a long way, but cable for sure. Like 5 years ago, or it hasn't been 5 for me, it's been about 3. But when I first cut it, people were like, whoa, even 3 years ago. and now already it's like people are constantly telling me that they're cutting it, or they're thinking about cutting it, or they're not
it's
using
absolute garbage, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can say, you don't need a landline, you don't need a cable line, you don't need to send your kids to school, you don't need to have a stupid normal relationship with the utility company. We can do much better than that. We can be cleverer. And I live in a lovely house on a lovely street. I like to, eat out and do nice things. So it's not like I'm living in some sort of poverty, some sort of commune, or some sort of, ascetic life, like a sadhu, sat on a bed of nails with one arm raised for 25 years. That's not my style at all. I mean, after this, I'll be sat down with a gin and tonic and, watch the sun go down or something. So it's, it's very civilized. It's very plain in some ways. But how it's funded and how it's resourced and how we go about our day in my life with my family is very different, very, very, very different, very different approach to everything. And we obey the rules as we see fit. We don't take what's not ours. We don't harm anybody. We go along and obey all the natural laws, and no problem. It's easy peasy. So you don't have to be unlawful and ridiculous in your extremism. But I am an extremist and always have been. And so I was just saying to someone the other day, when I was 18, I just hated everyone. I just thought the world is so broken and stupid. It's ridiculous. Today, it's exactly the same. The only reason that's different, the only thing that's different is I know why now. And it's not hatred. It's disappointment in the resignation that I see in everyone's faces, the defeat that I feel in their hearts. Good men and good women who've given up. And I felt that when I was 18, and I feel it today at 44. Exactly the same. It's just that now I know why. Now I know why that's happening. So I take a special pleasure in doing my little bit to reverse that situation, to say, all right, if we can get those young people at 7 years of age is where you start. 7 to 14 is the crucial thing where all the circuits are laid down, as you might say. All the stone is chiseled at that point. It is reversible, but it takes decades if you get it wrong. If you get it right, those boys and girls are just like superheroes. A completely different relationship with reality. Completely individualistic. No pulling to the Democrats or the Republicans. That's garbage. A laughable joke. Doesn't even come into it. So the good traditions are kept. New things are created, integral conduct, great composure, great family units are created because right from the start, they're making better choices about boyfriends and girlfriends, about education, about when to have children, how to raise children, your relationship with your freedom of speech, your relationship with your right to defend yourself. All those things are seen in natural, healthy ways. Absolutely natural.
That's a really good point. Darren, you're going to be up for a challenge,
chiseling away at fucking free speech up here.
Yeah. Your kids are what now? They're getting ready for school, right?
My oldest is in nature kindergarten right now, but then next year she's in homeschool.
So what is that? Is that a private thing?
That's great.
Is that a private thing?
No, it's a public thing. If she can get, they're looking at maybe adding a couple of grades to it. Like they won't let them start. I don't think they'll ever let them go past grade 3. But if they keep the nature thing going for a couple more years, I think we'd keep her in because they're just out in nature all day.
That's fantastic. Pretty good teacher in itself.
If it's below -20, they're in the classroom. But the classroom, the classroom
you're in Canada,
is just like a community center, right? And it's like, so if she can do that a couple more years, she'll probably stay in. But if not, when she's done that, she's going to homeschool.
Oh, she is?
That's homeschool?
Yeah, and she's on the art school list right now.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to pan out. We haven't been hearing great reviews about it. That it's been sliding, and then my youngest, we were actually just discussing today because we were just going to homeschool her right from the get-go. But my oldest went to a pretty good little preschool here in town with a nice British lady, and it was really good. It's a little pricey, like a couple $100 a month, but I figure we're going to send her to that anyway. I think that's good for her to get, a couple hours a week of trusting another environment other than home.
Yeah.
But
if
then
you do
once it's
homeschool,
actual learning, it's going to be home. There's no way my kids are going into the public
school
system.
Really? You guys are already fully there?
No, and I think that the government's going to make it so that unvaccinated kids can't be in public school in the next couple of years anyway. So that'll just be the final fucking
Jeez, you're really
push.
bucking the system here, buddy. You got unvaccinated private homeschooled kids.
Yeah, healthy, independent children. What an incredible situation.
I grow my own food and I grow my own medicine.
Yeah.
You see, it's your instinct though, isn't it? It's natural. It's not extremism. It's not dropping out of the system. It's the natural human way. And all we've got to do is just structure that in a better way because it's a little bit too haphazard at the moment because it's early days. That process is happening though and will continue to happen where just like, the television and the newspapers that nobody watches and reads anymore, a forward-thinking
independent media is insane right now.
A forward-thinking parent in 10 years' time would not dream of sending the children to a normal school.
Right.
Not dream of it. In 10 years' time, that's my suggestion. And so you and me and the listeners all have a role to play in that, not only in what we choose to do with our families, but in the level of education and, as I say, quality and excellence that we decide upon for ourselves, because we then become the old guys who are teaching. So in 10, 20, 30 years, it's us. It's us. There's no one else here. Believe me, there's no one else. It's us. So we have to make sure that we feel in our heart when you're still inside in silence that you think, I am at the level where I'm fit to teach this stuff. Not to perfection. I've got my flaws just like everyone else, but I've crossed the threshold of quality where I can definitely inspire young people to be stronger and truer and wiser. And if we can do that, Empire will just be a funny thought in the rearview mirror.
Have you ever thought about putting together any short videos or anything like that would be consumable for people that are doing that sort of homeschooling thing? Because I think that's the next step that nobody's really doing right now, is to see, and I would love to see it come from, our community, the independent sort of. Like
we were talking about Randall, we asked Randall Carlson this too as well. Because he was talking about teaching kids and stuff, and actually just making lessons for.
Yeah, I've seen people doing it. I know that there's a network of mothers in Arizona who homeschool, and in Florida and in Illinois. Lots of people I know out there who will be listening to this program. They know who I'm talking about. But the one in Arizona, in a community there's like 25, 30 mums, and mostly mums, but the dads as well. And they homeschool, and they each have specialisms and stuff. But what they've started to do is see the importance of getting the kids out socially to soccer and hockey and swimming and theatre and museums. So the social skills are, augmented properly, which is one thing you do learn outside of the home. But the other thing is, they've said, well, wait a minute, we have a great deal of wisdom, but we can't always bring it into the room. So they've set up like a little video booth and started producing their own material for that network. So they, one of them will sit in front of a camera and say, hey, welcome to the class today. Okay, today we're going to talk about Roman history in Britain in 200 AD. What a fascinating time it was. And and they're making their own curriculum materials, their own video textbooks, they're making their own material. So if you just get a few people who are skilled in that, you can do that in one room. And over 2, 3, 4 years, you could create enough course material to happily satisfy millions of children, happily. So it's there. As I say, what is lacking is structure and organization. So that's why we need people who have those administrative skills or the resource. Like there's a lady I know in Arizona, she has an independent charter school, and she wants to bring me in to teach the kids just some classes, not as a permanent job, but I'll do a program, I'll do a sequence of classes there on something interesting that I think will benefit them. And because it's an independent school, she can do what she wants. The mums and dads know that the kids are gonna get a very illuminating, independent, provocative, natural, excellent education. So to bring in independent spiritual teachers and philosophers and researchers would be fantastic, absolutely brilliant, no problem. So that's happening as we speak. It's just that it's still the foothills of this great mountain range, and we're dreaming of the top peaks above the mist, but we're still arising. We're still emerging. We're still creating that environment for it to happen. But make no mistake, it will totally supplant what exists at the moment. But as I say, the key thing is not to campaign against what's happening, not to try and reverse engineer what's happening. Is to create the new thing. Just immediately create the new thing. Put all of your energy, 100%, into that new education, the new media. You're already doing it. You guys are already doing it in what you're doing right now. I'm already doing it in what I do. And I bet tons of the listeners are doing it as well. And we just have to absolutely feel that we are the authority. We will be the authority. And in some communities, they're even doing it in law. They're even doing it in security. They're even doing it in engineering. They're even doing it with their own laws outside of the legal jurisdiction of the American federal government, in some places on reservation land. I won't say where they are.
No,
places where
fucking rolling in.
Right. But they can't, you see, because they've got no jurisdiction.
So what are they doing?
Yeah, they're working on that, I think.
What I'm saying is that many communities who want to do something a bit more radical and not at all illegal or naughty or mischievous, they're not trying to get away with anything.
Drink some raw milk.
Let's say they want to do different coding for buildings. Let's say they want to drink raw milk. Let's say they want to not vaccinate the children. Some of those people are establishing relationships with Indians, Native Americans, indigenous people, whatever the bloody hell you want to call them these days. And they're saying, okay, we're going to give you a piece of this res. We're going to give you a piece of that. You have to abide by our laws, but ours are much more open and fewer in number. And we have to come and check that we think you're decent men and women. But other than that, there you are. That's quietly happening in some places now. I've seen it. And that's a move away from property, land, and law, which are the underpinnings of the federal government. And as soon as you do that, then it starts to get very interesting. Then it accelerates.
It'd be good to see the federal government step down a bit too.
Well, it is doing, because Trump's in power. So bit by bit, it's getting dialed back. And although some of it looks the reverse at the moment, it's just classic tactics to make friends with what you're going to change. So going over to the House of Saud, they know they're in big trouble because oil is going to go away soon. And they're already looking at alternatives. That's plain and obvious. You can read about it on, oil company websites. But when they've gone, there's going to be tremendous turmoil there, tremendous turmoil. So a lot of places are going to be dependent elementally and resource-wise on the landscapes and the communities around them. So where you live is important. And if you're in where we are, we'll probably do pretty good. But if you're in a place where there's no access to resources, intellectually or physically, it's very challenging. So I think clever people who can see this change coming quickly are beginning to see that to survive rapid changes in government and in earth changes and elemental changes, sure, you need some food and medicine and stuff and this and that and the other. But the key thing, one word. How do you survive earth changes? One word: community. And I don't mean the bullshit communities they talk about in the cities. I mean actual community of conscious people with wise elders. When you have that, the end of the world is just an exciting challenge.
Bring it on.
Bring it on. Bring it on right today, right now.
Well, maybe not today.
That's the test, isn't it? Maybe tomorrow.
Let's do it. Let's do it on Monday.
Or maybe next week.
Yeah, a week Tuesday.
I do think things have to get a little worse still before they get better. I do think there's got.
Yeah, we still have Trudeau, so.
Yeah, well, you're doing better than the poor French people who've got that new guy, Emmanuel Macron. Dear. What a flipping robot he is. He's like the Terminator out of Terminator 2. Unbelievable.
There was a little video going around the internet of him and Trudeau going for a little walk together, and at one point it looked like he was going to pick a flower off of the thing for him.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Well, that's probably as good a place as any to wrap it up.
Yeah, great. Oh. Some interesting, inspiring things.
Oh,
there.
We didn't talk about your
thing, gathering.
We better talk about
my thing. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Gathering.
Thank you. Yeah, we were talking about this before the show, weren't we? Yeah, every year in respect of gathering and of bringing people together, I have a sort of weekend seminar, gathering, workshop, opportunity for people to meet. And we've done it in many different places. We've done it in Portland, we've done it in Washington, we've done it in the mountains. And the last couple of years, we've done it at this super place called the Omega Institute, which is like a sort of big, spiritual holistic center up in upstate New York. And they have lots of interesting people there through the year from sort of May to September. And so September the 8th, 9th, and 10th, if you get yourself up to Rhinebeck in upstate New York, so it's not in the city with all glass and concrete and steel, it's up in the pastoral, rural landscapes, rolling hills and trees and rivers. It's very, very beautiful. And a lot of people will go up there for retreat and for peace and quiet. But on my weekend, you get that, but you also get fellowship. You will meet excellent people because over the years, we've started to formulate this group of people who come together. And many of them come year on year on year, and we come to learn together. And I will, give lectures, and you can see those on my website, neilkramer.com. And we talk about everything: politics, life, the universe, death, the astral, the mystical, the spiritual, very esoteric matters, very normal matters. We laugh, we joke, we walk by the lake together, we have a fire at night time. You can stay there. There's all different kind of lodging options, from like a tent to your own cottage and everything in between. So it's a very wonderful setup. And last year they did a super job. So when that happens, I'll go again. So again this year, I'll be happy to represent Omega and, teach in their facility. And it's just an excuse to get together and actually, make some plans, let your hair down, be with other serious pilgrims who are doing the same work as you at your level and above, So we're not always the smartest people in the room. It's good to be challenged, So yeah, I'd love to see anybody who's interested come along to that. So it's September the 8th to the 10th. And you can go and see, if you go on neilkramer.com and click on the events page, you'll see it. It says Way of the Supernal Path. So you can see that on the events page, September 8th to the 10th, 2017. Love to see any of you guys, any of the listeners would love to see you there.
Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes. I'll link to all that in the show notes. That sounds
you got a
really
bunch of
interesting.
listeners in that area.
I've been thinking about going to more of on vacation to more of a yoga type retreat or spiritual retreat. So
it's a lovely environment.
Yeah.
When do you think you'll come out west again? Like Portland or Washington would be, that's drivable.
Yeah, I travel such a lot, but it's on like a person by person basis. I am contemplating doing something over in Seattle in a little while, but I'm just trying to get all the administration together for that. So don't know is the short answer.
Yeah,
so for the
keep us posted.
I will. If there's any changes in that, I'll let you guys know. But for the time being, we have to jump on a plane and go to New York and spend that time and effort. But it was such an excellent time last year, and I know it'll be, bigger and better and more cool. So it's just a lovely opportunity. And for me personally as well, although, I'm working ostensibly, it's just so good to actually lay your hand upon somebody's shoulder and draw them close to you and laugh and look in their eyes. There's nothing like it. It's just very rejuvenating. I would thoroughly recommend people consider it.
I guess you'd fly into New York for that too. That'd be cool. I've never been to New York.
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast, especially if you fly into JFK and you're in the madness of the airport, or you get on the bloody Penn Station train down in the city. And then as you leave, the city starts to recede, and then the trees and the fields start to emerge. And, a couple of hours later, you're in this very pristine environment, and there's, just a giant spiritual college in the middle of the countryside. And it's, it's been my pleasure working with those guys. They do a good job.
Wow, that sounds
wonderful.
Great. Yeah.
Maybe we'll send Grambo.
Yeah, maybe I'll make it. I'll see.
Yeah,
my vacation might be being canceled. My other one. So, yeah. So, well, thanks for coming on, Neil. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and your, how to reach this equilibrium. And I don't know, really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for your time, and thanks for giving me this space to spout off on all these issues. I do appreciate it. I hope people will enjoy listening to our conversations today.
Yeah, for sure. It's really good timing for them too. Yeah.